Hey everybody, remember a little while ago I spoke about the acoustic cameras that might be coming to the UK. These acoustic cameras are basically like a speeding camera but for noise levels. They suggest that they are able to pick out an individual vehicle, tell how loud that vehicle is, and then impose a fine where required. Now, when I spoke about this in the past, it was very much in its sort of proposal stage, and I think I even said back then, I don't like the idea of these things, and I'm not entirely sure how they can be so sure what bike it is. And I think I even used this road as an example, where I said on the road to like Loomies, you have lots of bikes together, so how is it going to pick out one from another? Well, now we're at the testing stage, as it turns out, because one of the first ones, or if not the very first one, acoustic camera which is being trialled, is currently on one of the roads around Loomies. It's there right now. I could go and view it. I believe it's been there something like a week now, and I've had a few people message me to be like, have you heard about this? Have you seen about this? Are you going to talk about it? It's like, well, I kind of have already talked about it. But I've also now seen it hitting the mainstream news locally anyway. And of course, a lot of them are completely misrepresenting it as something it's not. A lot of them are going with a headline of acoustic camera now on road, blah, blah, blah. At no point mentioning it's just in its testing phase and no penalties will be given out while it's there. Like, I've seen somewhere that makes the suggestion that you might get a warning letter to be like, by the way, we're testing this camera and your bike went past and it's a bit loud. I don't see them doing that because it's in a testing phase. It's going to have errors. So I don't see them doing that either. I literally think the thing is going to sit there and they're just going to see what happens. Now, in the UK, to my understanding, there is no hard ceiling limit when it comes to how loud a vehicle can be, because when it comes to the MOT, there is no ceiling limit on how loud the bike can be. It comes down to the tester's discretion, and the tester can very often, and we'll put on, I've had a few of my advisories, will say exhaust excessively noisy, which is kind of fair enough, but it comes down to their taste. You know, if there's someone that believes that stock is best and they don't believe in like loud pipes saves lives or anything like that, they might say that's excessively noisy. Whereas in someone else, they maybe had a crash and and since then has had a louder exhaust and seen the benefits of it. I'm not getting into that debate whether it actually does or doesn't, because the whole does loud pipes save life thing, I just don't want to get into it. There's no way of proving it either way, so it's one of those subjects that people can, you know, just argue continuously and never have to come to a conclusion over it. But depending on that tester's personal preferences is as to whether you'll get an advisory on your MOT saying exhaust excessively noisy. It doesn't mean anything. It can be on your advisories on your MOT forever, you know, just year after year, it'll just say there, exhaust excessively noisy. So much so is this down to the tester's discretion that I've actually heard from people who have said to me, yeah, my bike got marked for exhaust excessively noisy with the stock exhaust on it. Not decatted, not debaffled, just exactly as it was supposed to be. I believe the bike the person I was speaking to had this with was a 1000 Fireblade, and we're probably going back a few years. This is part of the reason why you'll notice that all the new thousands have got these gigantosaurus exhausts. It's also to keep with Euro 4 and make sure that the emissions rules are kept, but that is the reason why they have those ginormous exhausts on them. And of course then people want to get rid of them. Well, that now might be a problem, because if it is loud, you might find yourself in a situation where you're getting a fine for it. I don't know how they calibrate these mic camera things. I assume what they do is have a source of audio that they can play from the middle of the road when they set the camera up, which is a known volume, and then they can calibrate the microphones to that and know that if something here is making this much noise, it was this loud. And that works great in a single vehicle situation, but what if 5 bikes go together in a little pack? What if your exhaust faces sideways towards it rather than backwards? Because on my XJ6 at the moment, as you may well know, my exhaust faces backwards, and to me it's a little quieter, it's a little different. What I have particularly noticed is that when I go through tunnels, it's not quite as loud because the sound has been projected backwards. When my exhaust is side mounted and comes out the side, it's way louder because it's bouncing off the walls and reverberating off the ceiling and going round and round and round. There's a few bikes that have got side mounted exhausts that you'll be aware of, and if you ride one you'll know that if you go down the motorway and you've got a crash barrier on that side, you'll hear your bike more. So how exactly are these cameras going to pick out individual bikes? Exactly how they're going to pick out whether an exhaust is pointed directly at it compared to if it was going backwards? I don't know. I think this is information that will come out more as the testing goes on. Are they going to implement this? I'd like to think not, but I just know what our government's like and what the people have caused. And I'm sorry, stuff like this is caused generally by moaning people. From the local townspeople. They are deeply unhappy about motorcycles going through their town, claiming them to be at excessive speeds and excessively noisy. Now, the fact of the matter is, yes, in all instances, in all ways, in all things, there will always be a minority of people who do these things, and they will be noticed. If it takes, 1 in 100 goes flying through there, well, everyone's going to notice that 1 in 100 and ignore the 99 that didn't. So it is, in ways, our fault, or the fault of some riders, that these sorts of things happen. I mean, the Loomies roads are biking roads. They've been biking roads for years and years. You happen to live in one of the meccas of biking in the UK, one of the few surviving ones. I mean, to my understanding, was it the Cat and Fiddle, which was well known as a biking area in the UK? They put average speed cameras or something like that up there, and it killed the business. I made a suggestion at the time, which was maybe ask the council to move the national speed limit signs a few hundred yards up the road, because they literally are at the exit of the village. So the second that someone hits that, national speed limit sign, what they're going to do, they're going to open it up, blast up into the national speed limit and send that sound down into the little village. And yeah, with old-fashioned concrete wall buildings either side, narrow streets, it reverberates through there a proper good one. And it makes your bike sound good as well, which is also why people go through there in a lower gear than they should do. We get the locals aren't happy. We as a community of bikers need to try and do something here. Could you try and just, put it up a gear as you go through the towns, keep it under 30, be respectful in those short little sections, because then when you get into the nice open section, everyone's happy. You get to have your fun on your bike, and everyone gets to, well, I would say sleep peacefully, but no one is riding a bike through there really, really late at night. Okay, maybe in the summer, but then Loomie's closed at 10 anyway, so was it 10 or is it on the late nights? Yeah, otherwise it's like 6. Now, having spent a lot of time on those roads, I can also tell you that there's an awful lot of cars around there which are very, very loud. They're not going to Loomies, they're just doing a route which in the end will end up leading them back to Goodwood. Look at the Goodwood area. Constantly full of supercars. Constantly full of people, and everyone loves it. As far as I've seen, I've never heard about locals complaining about Goodwood Race Circuit having Lamborghinis and Ferraris driving up and down their road. I mean, to be honest with you, the loudest bikes out there, the bikes that are absolutely the loudest, without doubt in my opinion, is 125Cs with cut-off exhaust. No, it's Harleys. Big Harleys with big straight pipes on them. Oh, they sound good, they sound awesome, but those things can't even tick over without sounding loud. And inline 4, keep it at low revs, it's not loud at all. Now there is something I should say here, which is if you do go past this camera, I know the playful spirit in you might be like, rev the balls off your bike. Not a good idea. You are just going to give them all the evidence they need. What you need to do is coast past it with your clutch in. And then when they come back the results to the locals and they're like, what are you going on about? It's not that loud. We have a better case to make. I do feel like a lot of this comes down to a few individuals just frankly not liking motorcyclists. And this is something that I've experienced throughout my entire life on a bike. But then it may be the same with anything. Maybe some people just absolutely despise jugglers. Dirty jugglers. Now, if you get that reference, you'll understand exactly the sort of situation I'm referring to, and I think that is kind of what's going on. As I say, I know this is all stemmed from years and years of a few individuals complaining and complaining about how noisy bikes are when they live in a place that for the UK culture of biking has always been a big part. I understand if you live there, you won't see it that way. If you don't like bikes, you won't see it that way. This comes down to, again, the intolerance people have for each other. Like, when I'm in the garden and I just want to sit out there and chill and I have to listen to kids in 3 of the 6 surrounding gardens screaming continuously for 6 hours a day, I'd love to go around and say, hey, could you get your kids to shut up for 5 minutes so I could possibly enjoy my garden? No? Okay then, but that you can't say that because that's kids, and that's wholesome. That's supposed to be there. That's something that everyone should love. The laughter of a child is something everyone should love. I don't hate kids, but you can understand that if for like the entire summer you have to listen to someone screaming, that could be annoying to you. People who have dogs who bark continuously. Neighbours who bicker and argue in their garden rather than going inside their house. I know so much about a couple of the people who live near me because I've sat in my garden and I've not intended to, but heard them having arguments and quarrels over things, and it becomes quite funny. It becomes like a little soap opera for me from over the hedge. I'd like to give them advice like, hey, why don't you shut the... Am I trying to call the council in? Get them to get a noise meter in to see if these people are making excessive amounts of noise? No! Because it's called tolerance. We all live in this country together. Sometimes we have to be able to annoy each other a bit. That's just part of living together. You live with someone, you're in a relationship with someone, every now and then you're going to annoy each other a little bit. And this is where a few people complaining, a few people kicking off can do great damage to an industry, an area. These people might not realise the amount of money that bikes bring into that area. You put these acoustic cameras in there and people are getting risks of getting fines for just riding down there. Sorry, we're not going to go there anymore. Or you'll just keep away from the road that it's on, because unless they put them on every single road, people will just learn where it is. It's not going to solve your problem, unless it's in your village directly. But to my understanding, it's not in the village, it's down the road. My family's old business was built by my grandfather from the ground up. That guy did it all himself. Part of the reason it doesn't exist anymore is because my grandfather built it in a place where there was no people, there was fields all around. It was a relatively noisy sort of business, so it required for it to be somewhere like that. Over the years, more and more houses encroached on that area, and eventually, over the road, they built a few houses. Within about 5 or 6 years of that happening, all the locals started to complain about the noise and about everything associated with being near that place. You moved there. You made that decision. You know, people who buy houses next to train lines don't then say after 5 years, oh, actually I think the train line should be moved and shut down because it's too noisy for me. No, that was your own mistake for living there and not doing the research to find out there was a train track at the bottom of your garden. In the same way that if anyone's moved into that area, since Loomies and the culture of biking in that area has been there, and then you're trying to get it shut down because you don't like the noise, can you see why some people might not like you very much? And one of the horrible ironies that seems to be coming true a lot in this world is a lot of the people calling for something to be, stop them doing it, it's too loud, it's this, it's that, enjoyed doing it themselves as kids. There were no noise regulations on bikes back in the day. There was no, oh, you can't have a bike that's two-stroke and puts out all this smoke. Yeah, okay, I get why these things have to change over time. But if you enjoyed them, don't try and ruin someone else from doing it. Please wait a second. Please wait a second. Thank you, mate. Thank you. Dear God, thank you. The astute amongst you will have noticed that my microphone is breaking down there. Yeah, the Drift 4K and rain strikes again. But it's kind of good because it means I can actually give this a shorter conclusion. What I'm kind of saying here is that noise cameras are not put in place for safety. You can make the argument that a speed camera is put in place to slow people down to make it safer. If you believe in the theory loud pipe saves lives, you're actually putting motorcycles at more risk. It's hard enough for bikes out there as it is to get noticed. That's why some of us like to have a louder exhaust, so we know we're seen and heard. But as I say, I can to a point understand the annoyance, but I don't think it requires having cameras on the road fining people for having a louder exhaust. Anyway, so this isn't any longer. I'm going to end it here. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you're new to my channel. I'm on my way to 100k. And if you'd like to really support this channel, consider joining my Patreon for $1 a month. I'm not saying that the situation of Loomies is 100% down to people who've moved in after the fact, or people that hate motorcycles. There may be some genuine people there with stories that will say why it's a big issue for them, and I can understand that. However, as I say, a noise camera is not a safety camera, and these things only come to exist when people complain and moan. And this very much, as I say, comes down to the intolerance people have for just being allowed to annoy each other a little bit from time to time. Anyway, Catch you next time. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.